people know the glitch to access the citadel early in the game, but I found something rather intriguing this time. I had always experienced odd happenings while activating this glitch, but nothing like this. As usual, I went to the top of the rubble pile. I fell through and made my trek through the empty space to the citadel entrance to get into the building. I noticed from a distance 3 large poles sticking up from the ground, but couldn't see them well enough until I got closer. I got closer to find 3 crosses. If you've ever played Fallout New Vegas, you'll know what I'm talking about. They were similar to the crosses used by Caesar's Legion, but clearly the work of raiders instead of a more organized group like the Legion. The crosses were covered in gore and blood, organs hanging all over them. There were 3 people crucified: Elder Lyons, Star Paladin Cross, and Sarah Lyons. They were still alive but barely. I first talked to Sarah. I wrote down what she said. "What the hell have you done? You brought them right to us. It was a slaughter. The knights, the scribes, the initiates. All dead. You son of a bitch." Then she coughed up some blood and died. Then I went to Star Paladin Cross. "I can't believe you. Working with raiders? Why? We were going to fix the wasteland. Don't you remember what your father did for you? He was trying to help you. Help us. And you do this? Say goodbye to any hopes of civilization in this hell." She did the same animation as Sarah and died. Finally I went to Lyons. "This was the worst. James loves you. He abandoned all his work for you. He took you to the vault because you would be safer. I guess he didn't realize that in the end the wasteland was the one made safer with you in the vault. There's nothing stopping the raiders from destroying the entire capital Wastley now. I hope you were happy." Instead of the death animation of the other 2, his head exploded. It cut back to first person where 3 raiders attacked. Their health wouldn't go down, and they just fired away at my body, blowing away my limbs. A cutscene followed. It showed raiders breaking into Megaton first, with shots of the sheriff, Moira, Walter, Bully, Jericho, and Moriarty being slaughtered, followed by an aerial view of the town blowing up. Then it showed Tenpenny Tower. Raiders charged the doors, ran in, and a violent scene ensued of all the residents being hacked to pieces with Chinese swords. Big Town was flooded with raiders. The buildings were on fire and the women were being raped. Underworld was cleared out with flamethrowers. Rivet City was crawling with raiders swimming up to the hull and climbing over the edges, cutting everyone apart and shooting their dead bodies. It faded to black. The narrator's voice came across saying the old phrase, "War. War never changes." It took me back to the main menu. When I went to load my game, it started back over at the birth scene. The Vault Dweller was being born, but the conversation was slightly different. Instead of James asking Fear it was a boy or a girl, this conversation appeared. "James, kill it." "Doctor, what? What the hell is wrong with you, James?" "James, I said kill it. It's gonna be the death of us all. Doctor, get James out of here." James then grabbed the scalpel and stabbed the baby to death, the screen slowly going dark. I turned the game off and on again, but all my saves were gone. It played normally after that. I have no idea what it was that triggered this, but it was terrifying to say the least. I am a collector of assorted hacks and bootlegs of video games. This is a portion of my journal about these strange and exotic oddities of gaming. I am writing again because of another hacked game I came upon, this time a hacked Earthbound cartridge. From my previous encounter with Slenderman, the game, I felt a little uneasy of buying another cartridge. But since it was near Halloween, I decided to buy one to see what it's like. It happened to be a hacked Earthbound and a normal Earthbound card at the local flea market, Green Dragon. The seller I always go to for hacked games had a few Earthbound hacks for me. One had a low-quality, scanned label on it, another had a sticker on it named Earthbound, and the last was the most interesting. The bootleg was on a blank SNES cartridge with a smudged word, Earthbound, written in red Sharpie. The seller said he couldn't get the game to work due to lockout. However, from what he was told by the previous owner, this cartridge contained a rather nice hack with some eerie stuff in it. Seemed fitting for my Halloween game, so I bought the bootleg hack for $8 and the official game for $50. I was able to get it cheap because one seller had to get rid of his SNES games fast and the reseller, who usually inhaled games like they were his sustenance, was sick that day. When I brought the games home, the SNES first locked out the hacked cartridge. To counter this, I made a cartridge specialized to bypass the lockout chip for my hacked games. I succeeded and was greeted by the game's intro, which was unchanged. After I started a new game, I saw burning houses, heard 16-bit shrieks, and the music to the Sonic CD's boss battles, yeah, that creepy song, which was somehow sampled to play on the SNES. The story said this. In 199X, in a small town in America, the evil demon Jaeger had been unleashed. He destroyed the town and soon spread throughout the land. The only one left alive was a small boy named Ness. However, Jaeger had something in store for him in the near future. The player starts as Ness, awakening to the sight of his half-destroyed house. As I walked to the door, a text box appeared. It is quiet except for the sound of burning wood. Something has happened to your family, your friends, your town, and soon you. Get dressed and leave QUICKLY. The screen faded out and into Ness, now dressed with his clothes slightly charred. I navigated through the wreckage of the house and stumbled into the sister's room. There, I found a present with the item, Red Hat. I equipped it and realized that the present was next to a jumbled sprite of Ness's sister. The body, from what I could tell, looked bitten and scratched as if by some animal. The hat was clearly used to fend off the attacker. I saw a trail of pixelated red paw prints leading out the door and followed it downstairs. There I found the bodies of Ness's mom and their dog, King, who looked rabid and as if he was eaten with a blunt object. Ness' mom looked the same as Ness' sister did, torn up from bite marks and scratches. It was obvious what had happened. Ness was frozen in place, staring at the mess, for at least a minute before I was given control again. Then I noticed the music. It was the Onyx theme, in reverse with occasional changes in pitches and speed. This song continued through both Ness's house and in on it. This scene was both sad and eerie at the same time, making me to start to feel a little depressed. This hacker sure does know how to put on a mood, I commented aloud. I hope the rest of the story gets even more twisted. I was ready for what was yet to come. Searching around the area of Ness's house and on it, I noticed Pokey's house was completely gone as if it didn't exist. Also, the treasure hunter's house was destroyed with his burned dead body nearby. At the top of the hill there was no meteorite but instead a burning tree with several dead bodies around. After finding little in on it, except for the dead mayor and an empty hospital, I went to Twassen and could only find a few spiteful crows that gave me only 3 XP when I defeated them. Also, instead of the 16-bit sprite of the crow, the hacker used the 8-bit sprite from the original Mother on the Famicom instead. You know, the sprite that originally had a cigarette in its hand there, when the music changed to Twassen's theme, still playing in reverse with occasional pitch shifting like in the Onyx theme. In the town, the only noticeable difference was that there were less dead bodies than in Onyx, implying that this destruction was spreading slowly. After I started advancing through to the next town, I noticed that there was less and less destruction until the game looked normal again. The only thing was that I was underpowered and still had no companions. In fact, there were no companions. They had been erased from the plot entirely. When I got to summer, everyone was noticeably gloomy. The Runaway Five were getting ready to leave the town and said to Ness, run, drive, swim, don't stop, in order from left to right. After this point some NPCs were telling Ness strange things like, you're running out of time, and you're too slow, you'll kill us all. So I left summer as soon as I could without having to do any quests. In fact, all I had to do was walk directly to the end. As the game progressed things became drearier, there was a sense of impending doom. The music tracks progressively became more depressing the farther into the game I went and the colors started to fade into black and white. The sprites had more and more depressing facial expressions as well. By the time I made it to Saturn Valley, the game was completely in black and white. The music was also in reverse and slowed down. Mr. Saturn was frowning and almost crying, with his antennas drooping. When I tried to interact with him, he said nothing. Then it was time to go back in time as a robot. When I entered Jaeger's lair, I noticed that my robot looked worn and beat. When I entered the boss room, Pokey, instead of saying his usual snide remarks, sent Jairus right away and then disappeared. While fighting Jairus, he said more than just his usual dialogue. These included, you have no help, no friends, no family, no prayers. I was only level 3, which came after 4 hours of getting petty amounts of EXP from spiteful crows. I had no chance. Instead of the retry screen, a cutscene appeared of the earth being turned to fire. A caption below read, Another gajen into nadiru mana o midakudase. Sorwa another note to midwana katashite to va, nezuwa soro tsukadataru. Which translated out to, look what you have caused. If it hadn't have been for YOU, Ness would have made it. Before cutting to black with a text. Too slow. Just as I thought this was the end, a loud 16-bit scream, emitted from the TV as an image of a mutilated face of Ness, appeared with a caption, YOURSAULT. Before cutting to black. After nothing happening after a minute, I shut the console off. I realized that the end was supposed to evoke terror through guilt and empathy. Even after years of having those sorts of emotions, desensitized through violent, gory video games, I still felt a bit depressed. However, the feeling lasted no more than a week. The game is now in my personal collection. I have no intention of playing it anytime soon, although it is the most intriguing piece of my collection.